Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back after the holidays. And hopefully, you and yours had a wonderful holiday season. Back to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner with your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert. And again, I want to wish everyone a wonderful new year, and hopefully, that this year will bring you many of the things that you hope for. So we are going to tonight move into our continue our series of life after the uniform. And before we get started, though, first of all, I do want to thank CC, our studio head, for helping fill in with some previously aired episodes so that my wife and I could have a little bit of a vacation, a trip that we had planned. So that was much appreciated. It gave us a chance to take a break. So thank you, CC. Also, I want to talk about our sponsors again. You know, I do it every show. We have two great sponsors that help us with our show. And first, of course, we have Quest Jewelers from Merrifield, Virginia. Pete and Juan Tane, and I've told you guys a number of times, and I'll continue to tell you, if you call him or contact him and tell Pete you watch the show, he will take care of you, and in fact, he will give you a discount. Just tell him that you saw me on the show and I told you to contact him, and he will take care of you, especially some beautiful custom pieces if you want something made. And I have to say that he did a good job hooking me up for the holidays, as I had a new piece of jewelry made for my wife for Christmas, and I think she really enjoyed it. So contact Quest Jewelers. There's their information on the screen. See what they can do for you. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service disabled veteran-owned small business, and CK Park and his crew are available to help you with all of your business needs. Whether you need management studies, training, IT support, survey development, he and his company can help you. And CK has a wonderful organization there, being a retired military veteran himself, who hires quite a few veterans. In fact, almost half of his workforce are veterans. So we want to thank him for supporting our show as well, along with those veterans in the various communities around the United States where he hires and operates organizations. So I want to get started tonight. And, you know, we've spent part one and part two talking about life after the uniform and making those changes and making decisions and doing different things. Now I want to talk about a subject that is the heavy. It's the villain. It's the one that grows hair on your hands and sends you shivering under the covers. You know, of course, I'm talking about what? The Veterans Administration, or as we lovingly call it, the VA. Now, you know, I have to tell you, after I retired from the military and throughout my federal civil service career, I actually did work for the VA for about 3 years, and in fact worked for the Veterans Health Administration, the ones who are responsible for a lot of veterans health programs. And I really have to tell you, while every organization may have their share of people that you're going to run into that may be less than stellar or provide a little less than what you would want for customer service operations or support, I will tell you, by and large, the people that I worked with there took their mission to support veterans very seriously. And I think that's still true today, even though, you know, sometimes we will run into those employees who really, as far as I'm concerned, if they're treating you the way some people have said they treated you, they don't need to be there. But having said that, the VA does have a very, very professional staff in place, and most of the people working there are hardworking, and they really care about the veterans and care about what happens and try their best to serve you as veterans. Now, the interesting thing is something that we don't think about when we think about the VA. You got to remember, as of this past year in 2022, the VA was responsible for serving approximately 18.5 million living veterans in the United States. Now, that is a huge, huge population of people compared to the staff. And I think one of the biggest, the biggest, problems and issues that you hear about with the VA or at some of their VA hospitals. Now, I happen to know or have known several VA doctors. One of them, my goodness, she was one of the most caring people I've ever want to meet in terms of the medical profession. And I've had my share of experiences with the VA too. And we're going to talk about those in just a few minutes. And I'm going to give you some tips and some things that I think you can do to not only make your VA experience a little better, but you have to keep in mind, we are responsible as much as some of those VA people are for our own VA process and our own VA services. So we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But, I will tell you, the last time I was in the Veterans Administration Hospital in Washington, D.C., I mean, being a disabled veteran myself, I have to tell you folks, I was almost to the point of tears in that hospital. I went in there and it seemed to be, and this wasn't the staff, these were some of the veterans that I saw in there. And it just moves your heart. If it doesn't, there's something wrong with you. And I'm a big old 280-pound retired veteran who used to be a first sergeant. I used to be one of the hardest people you can ever think of. And if it can almost bring me to tears, it's bound to do it to you. So going in that hospital, and I went in there to get my VA, my disabled veteran ID card. I had not been issued one yet. And I went in there and walking through the halls, and I saw some of these older Vietnam veterans in wheelchairs. And then I saw some of the younger veterans in there from Iraqi freedom and Afghanistan. And there was one young man in there that had his wife and a small child with him. And this guy, of course, had to be from, Iraqi freedom or Afghanistan. But he had lost both of his legs from the knees down and was in a wheelchair. And I saw one of the VA medical folks talking with him, trying to help him. And she was just very, very gentle, very kind, talking to him and his wife. But I looked at him sitting in that chair, and I looked at him, and I looked at his wife, and I looked at the child, and I thought to myself, my gosh, there but for the grace of God, go I. So it really touched my heart to take a trip down to that hospital and go inside and see what was there. And I'm just going to take this opportunity before I really get into talking to what I wanted to talk to you about is, if you have an opportunity, if you want to volunteer to do something, oh my gosh, people, please go down to the VA hospital in your neighborhood, in your city, your area, wherever it is, and volunteer to help down there. And I think you will see that your help will be much appreciated, much needed. And I think that you're going to come away with something from that as well. So I just wanted to put that out to you because it really touched me when I made that trip down to our VA hospital in Washington. So when we think about the VA, everybody talks about, all you hear are the horror stories and things that don't happen. And I have to tell you, having a career as a federal employee and dealing with federal budgets and contracts and things, I was well attuned to what was happening within the VA. And for a number of years, Congress slashed the VA's budget while the number of wounded and disabled veterans continued to increase. And it wasn't until the last few years that the VA has begun to get their increase in budgets again so that they can hire more people and put new programs in place. And I'm going to talk about a few of those new programs before the end of the show. But, when you think about this and you think about some of the stories you heard, there are reasons sometimes behind why some of those things happen. Not making excuses, just trying to let you know from the other side that sometimes there are reasons why the VA has struggled to do some of the things that they were supposed to do and to help some of the people that they were supposed to help. But I have to tell you, from my own personal experience, I was very lucky when I retired from the military. Now it's been what, 22 years ago. My gosh, it doesn't seem that long. It's gone by so fast that I had a friend, a retired Army Sergeant Major, who was a friend of mine, who actually was a civilian there working at the transition center there at the community in Germany where I retired from. And he gave me some very, very good advice. And he said, when you go into out process through the transition center, he said, have a copy of your medical records with you and fill out the VA form and turn in a claim when you first out process. He said that will speed things up immensely. So I did. I took his advice. I got copies of the number of the things, the issues that I had that I thought I could file my VA claim for. And just a couple of them, I had a partial hearing loss. I had an injured and had my knee and had arthroscopic surgery. So my knee was, of course, in pretty rough shape when I retired. So there were a couple of things that I put in my VA paperwork for. And I retired and I moved back to the States and didn't really think about it too much. But I have to say, within about 2 months after I had filed that claim and retired in Germany, I got a letter from the VA saying that they were processing my claim. And then about a month later, I heard from them and I got a disability rating letter from them. So all of that within 90 days after I retired. Now, it's a little different for retirees as opposed to just veterans who spend their time in and then get out. If you're a military retiree, normally, if you get a disability rating below 50%, then what they're going to do is they're going to tax exempt 50% of your retirement pay. So the VA is actually going to pay you whatever percentage your disability is of your retirement pay, making it tax exempt. So which is a nice thing to be able to do. The Dual Pay Act that they have in place now is once you go above that 50%, the VA now pays you whatever rating you have. They pay you a separate disability pension in addition to your military retirement. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But if you want to get the process started, the best thing to do is keep copies of your medical records before you retire or leave the service. Get copies of some of the things you think are pertinent so that you can do that and provide them to the VA when you leave the service or shortly after. The other thing that I was told, which I think was a very good thing that I think you want to know, is I actually took about 5 additional copies of my DD-214 and I took them over to my judge advocate office, what we know as JAG. You guys are probably familiar with the old TV show JAG. And I walked in there with about 5 copies of my DD-214, the original, my ID card, and I had the young clerk in there certify 5 additional copies. He notarized them for me, which means, he stated them as true as the original. So they were just as good as the original DD-214. I still have 4 of those 5 copies today, in addition to my original. So if anything ever happens, my wife, when I'm gone, or if I need it, I still have my original and about 4 copies of the notarized DD-214 that can be used or she can use after I'm gone. So it's just another one of those tips, because like I said, we want to, it's up to us to try and help and make the process as easy as we can as well. The other thing that you can do that I can't stress enough is you need to go to va.gov and ebenefits.gov and familiarize yourself with the website. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that the VA can do for you. But you really need to do your research. Keep copies of your medical records. Keep copies of your DD-214. You know, familiarize yourself with the VA website so you know where to find things, and it'll make that a whole lot easier. And I mean, my complete process through the VA was not always that easy. My initial one was pretty easy, and I did fine for a number of years. But then as I started getting older, as us old retired guys tend to do, my body really started feeling the effects of my time in the military. My knees got progressively worse. My foot, and as I went forward, I ended up having to have foot surgery and have staples put in my foot. My knees really went bad. I had to have 2 knee replacements. And so I was able to go back to the VA. And there were a couple of challenges I had getting through all that. But I have to tell you, the thing that made it easier for me was using the eBenefit website. ebenefits.gov. You can go on there as a veteran, create you an account and a login, and you can go in there and you can submit your VA claim online. And I have to tell you, that was the easiest thing for me to do. If you can get copies of your medical records from your physician, whoever it is, tell them you need copies of your medical records and the issues that you've been having that you think relate to your military service, copies of x-ray, readings by the doctor. You don't have to have the x-rays themselves, just the reports on your x-rays where the doctor read your x-rays. Get copies of those. You can go into eBenefits simply by going to the website and creating an account for yourself. And then, of course, you have to identify yourself and prove, who you are. But once you do that, you go into eBenefits, you can submit a fully developed claim online. And when I say fully developed, that means you go in there, you have soft copies or scanned copies of everything that you need to submit. They'll ask you to fill out a couple of forms online. And then once you do that, they'll ask you to upload any of your medical records that go with what you're claiming. And you could submit that as a fully developed claim. You don't have to do anything else after that. I know there are a lot of people that go to the VA hospital to submit stuff. They submit stuff through the mail. But my suggestion is to go to ebenefits.gov, create you an account, and then you can follow their instructions. It's easy to do, and submit a fully developed claim. And a fully developed claim is one where you fill out everything they ask you to, and you attach all of the pertinent medical records that you have. You just simply load them into the site. And once you do that, you can submit it as a fully developed claim. That's still going to take a few weeks before you hear anything. And the first thing they're going to tell you is we have received it, we are reviewing it, and then you just have to wait. Mine normally took about 6 weeks for them to review before they told me that they were preparing a decision letter for me. But it was a whole lot easier than mailing. It was a whole lot easier than dealing with the VA center itself. So I encourage you to try that. That's rarely where I had my best luck. So again, not 100% complete, smooth, easy, guaranteed thing. The thing is, when I submitted my fully developed claims, I was able to submit everything when I initially turned it in, along with all of my medical records. And that's when I didn't have any problem dealing with the VA. So I encourage you to do that. As you think about navigating the VA, become familiar with their website. Learn how they operate a little bit. You can read so much online and learn so much as to what they do and how they do it. But again, remember that ebenefits.gov website, because it can definitely be your friend. And just one quick note, if you go to ebenefits.gov, right now they're migrating some of the services over just to va.gov. So when you get there and you create your account, they may tell you, well, you need to go to va.gov to do this or do that. And that's because they've been migrating some of the services over. But va.gov and ebenefits.gov, for those of you veterans out there that want to deal with the VA and submit a claim, and for a number of other things we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. Those are the two sites you need to become familiar with. Have your records, have your DD-214, and you can submit a claim on there, just as I have done a number of times, and the VA has served me very well through that process. So just some tips, just some information to help you out, to help you navigate that dreaded VA. We're going to take a short break here, and when we come back after a word from our sponsors, we'll continue on, and I'm going to share with you some of the things that you can get from the VA and some of the new programs they have that are out there available. So we'll be right back after our commercial break. And hopefully our commercial break didn't take a holiday. Be patient. We will get there, folks, and then we will come back on the other side. Okay. All right. So thank you for that. And it seems we're having just a little bit of a glitch with our other advertisement from Nationwide IT Services. But again, I want to mention NIS and CK Park and his staff. Thank you for putting that up, since we were having a glitch with the advertisement. So again, we want to thank Nationwide IT. If you're a business owner or someone who needs assistance with business processes and business operations, please feel free to contact NIS. They are a professionally organized workplace and professionally done. So again, thank you to NIS for their continued support. All right. So before the break, you are listening to goingsolomedia.com, Veterans Corner. And before the break, we were talking about navigating the VA, and I was trying to give you a few tips on dealing with the VA and navigating your way through, and some of the things that you can do to make the process easier. So hopefully you'll find those helpful to you that I talked about before we went on the commercial break. So I wanted to talk just a little bit more about some of the things that the VA can do for you, because there's a lot more to the VA than just what you hear on the news. We have, not only the VA health services, and as I mentioned at the outset of this show, the hospitals there are really busy. They're really full. They're doing their best to service all of the wounded veterans who need help. And again, I encourage you, if you have a chance, to go volunteer there so you can see what they're like. But the VA does have a staff of very fine professional people providing medical services to veterans who need them and veterans who need help. So not only just the hospital services, There are educational services and training services and physical therapy located at those hospitals. When I worked for the VA, one of my jobs was to oversee the training center at the VA hospital in Washington, D.C., under the VHA. And we had a lot of training courses there, not only for staff, but some that were reaching out to patients as well. So the hospitals service the veterans well. The other thing I think that you'll find that's kind of linked to the disability, then once the service member comes out of the hospital, if they're in that position, is the VA also has a program that allows a disabled veteran to be able to go online again and submit for a grant to have their home modified. So if you have a disabled veteran who's in a wheelchair or some other disability and they really need to have their home modified, the VA has a certain number of grants that they can give each year to soldiers and service members who are in need of that assistance to modify their homes so that they can live in them comfortably. So again, that's kind of linked to the hospital because a lot of the documentation that you're going to need for those types of things do come from the hospital. But one of the biggest things I think that everybody knows about with the VA is the disability system. And myself, being a product of that system, I have to tell you, as I mentioned on the front side of the show tonight, I have had actually good experiences with the disability system in the VA. And that's partially because of what I told you at the beginning of the show of how I developed the claim myself, loaded all my documentation in myself, and submitted it online to the VA. And folks, I can't stress enough, that is the easiest way to do it. You just have to get your hands on your medical records so that you can do that. And so I strongly encourage you to do that. The good thing about it is whether you're rated at 10% or 100%, you know, what happens when you're rated as a disabled veteran? Well, there are a lot of things that open up. And some things people know about and some don't. And of course, the biggest program everybody knows about is if you're rated as a disabled veteran, there's some type of pension break or pension that goes along with it. And yes, that is true. There is. I know veterans who did not retire who got disability ratings, so they are drawing small disability pensions from the VA. There are some who were injured more seriously and didn't retire, and of course draw larger disability pensions. So, of course, that's one of the major programs. And I just looked at an article today that said that the VA has paid out over $16 billion in services and benefits to veterans over the past year. That is an incredible amount of money. So when you think about it, the VA not only has 16.5 million living veterans to serve, but think about that part of the budget they have to get from Congress in order to do what they do and pay what they pay. So it's just something interesting to know. Now, along with that pension, there are some other things that, as a disabled veteran, some people don't think about. And there are tax benefits to becoming a disabled veteran in a number of states and or cities and localities around the country, especially once you become 100% rated disability with the VA, there are tax benefits to it. They will no longer tax your homeowner taxes. They no longer tax your personal property taxes. Some of the other things you think about as a disabled veteran, especially 100%, you can get your lifetime pass to the national parks. A lot of states offer lifetime fishing and hunting license to veterans who are disabled. Now, granted, there are probably a lot of 100% disabled veterans who can no longer hunt, but there's a lot of us who can sit around and fish. So, again, these are just things that a lot of people don't think about that your disability provides you. So I want to share with you a few other things that the VA has going on now, and some of them are relatively new. One of the things that just came out of the VA is the new VA life insurance called VA Life. And for any disabled veteran, now it used to be once you were rated as a disabled veteran, they would send you a thing where you could pay and get a $10,000 whole life policy through the VA as additional life insurance. But we all know $10,000 is not going to do a whole lot. It might help you with, as you see on TV, those companies organize or advertising for final expenses. But $10,000 is not going to do a whole lot in terms of life insurance for anything else. Well, this new VA Life program that just came out, and you can find out about it when you navigate va.gov. You will find it on there. In fact, it's one of the things on their main page because it's a new program that you can buy up to $40,000 in whole life insurance as a veteran. You don't have to be disabled, just have to be a veteran. So it's, again, one of those new programs that the VA has put together. They will cover you, and the cost is nominal, as it was with the $10,000 policy. So for those of you that think you might be interested, I encourage you to take a look at it. It's called VA Life. The other thing that I think is more common that sometimes we don't think about is that VA home loan certificate. Now, I know that, if you're a veteran, you can use your VA loan. It does help with a number of things. Number one, if you can't, the rates tend to be a little different for a VA loan as opposed to some of the other loans. Secondly, if you can't afford to put a down payment on the house that you're buying, then of course the VA home loan will allow you to purchase that home without having to put down a down payment. One of the other things it does as well is normally there is a small funding fee for using your VA home loan certificate. If you are a disabled veteran, then they waive that funding fee. So there are all kinds of advantages here to using your home loan certificate. So I encourage those of you, if you haven't thought about it or haven't looked at it, do so. For those of you that maybe have before looked at it, you can go into eBenefits and va.gov into your account. And once you log into your account, you can actually print your own VA home loan certificate because it will be tied to your Social Security number and your VA service. So you can do that. That's a self-service you can get right online without having to contact the VA or a VA office. You can do it online and you can print it right out once you pull it up. So again, a lot of things available there for you. One of the other new programs that the VA has now, and I really found it interesting looking at a lot of these things that the VA provides now, other than healthcare and disability and things related to that. The VA also has a franchise opportunity for veterans program. And it's a coaching and assistance program that is linked to over 2,000 franchise brand companies around the United States. And they have partnered with the VA as part of this program to assist veterans who are interested in becoming franchisees in these various companies. So, if you're sitting there as a veteran, maybe you're getting ready to get out of the service or you're getting ready to retire, and you're wondering, I'm just not quite sure what I'm going to do. Because we all know, especially depending on your rank, once you retire, you can't always live off military retirement pay. You got to go out and pay the piper and get a second career. So for those of you that are wondering what you're going to do, maybe a consideration here. Go take a look at that Franchise Opportunities for Veterans program and see if that's something you might be interested in. Maybe you are interested in getting into your own business. It's something that may be able to help you out, and I suggest you take a good look at it. Some of the other things that we see that are really here for veterans, and again, there's so much. I mean, I could sit here for, I don't know how long and go through a lot of things for you. But some of the other things that we have available to on the VA website, there are podcasts for veterans for just about every topic, every subject you can think of, whether it's PTSD, stress, smoking cessation, family-related issue items, health-related issue items. The website is a wealth of information, folks. And all you got to do is go on there and take a look. There's more to the VA than just the hospital and the disabilities. Take a look at what's there and what they can provide for you. I thought it was interesting. I didn't take it, but I kind of clicked on and looked at the smoking cessation. And they also have a link to organizations around the United States that you can contact to help you stop smoking. So it's a pretty detailed and pretty outlined program that they have as one of the training programs. One of the other things that I think is interesting, a lot of people don't know about, is there are all kinds of veterans shopping discount programs. You know, AARP has their share. A lot of the other organizations, I'm a member of the DAV and the VFW, and we all get shopping programs with our membership there. But the VA has also partnered with a number of organizations and businesses across the United States to provide discounted shopping for just simply because you're a veteran. Peloton, Northern Face, Texas Roadhouse Steakhouse. I mean, those are just a few. And they all partner with the VA. There's a VA, a Veterans Canteen service that you can go to and become a member of as a veteran. And they have shopping discounts for all kinds of businesses and organizations. So when you start thinking about the VA and you start thinking about, you know, the limited knowledge you might have, remember, there is so much more to the VA than what you may have thought. I encourage you, prepare yourself. If you're going to leave the service or if you're about ready to retire, you know, as I said, prepare yourself. Make sure that you do your part to have the documentation you need to make your VA experience easy, because it can be easy. And mine has been relatively easy over about the last 10 years because that's what I was doing. I seriously encourage you to do the same thing. For those of you out there that may want to contact me and ask questions, I will be more than happy to help you, more than happy to point you in the right direction. You can reach me at the literaryvet@gmail.com. There's my email address. It's also on our website at Going Solo Media, where you will find my page and my shows. All of my contact information is there. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, you are more than welcome to do so. And I will be happy to point you in the right direction and see if we can make your experience as pleasant as mine was. Now, something I do want to touch on before we close the show tonight is, as I mentioned earlier, there's approximately 18.5 million living veterans. The problem is that we have about 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And that's higher per capita than a lot of other groups of people in the United States. Think about it. 22 veterans a day take their own lives, find it so hard to deal with things that they're dealing with and have experienced that they feel like it's not worth living anymore. Please, please, I encourage you, veterans out there, you see the VA crisis helpline at the bottom of the screen, or if you have your phone, you can text 838-255, text them for help. They'll contact you. They'll put you in touch with someone who you can talk to, who you can help. The interesting thing is that this crisis helpline has helped over 1.6 million veterans, has taken over 1.5 million calls, helping veterans who are in crisis. And they have actually sent over 45,000 rescuers to help veterans who have called them while they're on the line. I mean, think about that. It's not just because I'm a veteran. It's because there are people out there that you have served your country. They have served their country. They have given a lot. They have suffered a lot. And now they're continuing to suffer. And the VA is here to help you if you reach out, if you know how to navigate it, if you know who to contact. So again, please, please, I encourage you. If you find yourself in that position, call the VA crisis line at 1-800 273-8255, or send a text to 838-255, and they will help you. Don't do it alone. You can't. Folks, I've been through it. Couldn't do it alone. And it took my wife finally giving me an ultimatum, telling me I had to get help. Can't do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. So I encourage you. I'm imploring, please reach out for help. Get the VA to help you. Have them do more than just VA hospitals and compensation claims, because there is so much more to what they do. Again, for those of you who may want to contact me, feel free to do so. And I want to thank all of our veterans out there for your service, for your help to the nation, for all the things that you've done. And you need to remember, there are people out there that care about you and that will help you. So veterans, thank you for your service. Hopefully you're able to live your best life. For all the rest of our audience, we want to thank you for joining us. I hope you will join us again. Go to goingsolomedia.com, to our website. You will find all the shows on our network, to include my Veterans Corner, past shows, and information there for veterans and how you can get in touch with me. So please do so if you feel the need to, or if you want additional information. So thank you to all the listeners tonight. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next show.